than those that don't know this topic, so. But welcome to all of you for coming tonight. I'm Jean Broyhill, the Advance Arlington's board chair, and with Karen Bate, who is in the back of the room and our marketing committee chair of Advance Arlington, we are the producers of tonight's program. If you have any program ideas, we really encourage you to go online to our website, advance-arlington.org, and give us some program ideas. We've been around for 75 years. We're going to be around a lot longer than that. We want your ideas if there's issues in the community you think need to be brought to the attention of others in the community. A couple of housekeeping matters, as always, before we start. First, I'm honored to recognize Advance Arlington's major sponsors that are listed on this slide. This is an incredible group of Arlingtonians known to most of us, and we look forward to adding a few more supporters to these ranks. We are grateful to all of you who have supported us with other sponsorships and your memberships. Your financial commitment funds our operational and technical expenses in the back of the room and ensures that a place like Advance Arlington remains a part of the fabric of this community. Also, thank you tonight for our program sponsor, Aging Matters at the Aging Matters Radio. Well supported in the community. We're lucky to have Aging Matters founder, producer, host, and creator, Cheryl Beversdorf. And Cheryl, would you mind standing to everybody, those who may not know you? For those who don't know, she produces a weekly syndicated radio program and podcast featuring interviews with experts on aging issues of interest to older adults, their care partners, and families. Cheryl also offers life stories of guests and how their life experiences made a difference to them and to their communities. Like our speakers, Cheryl will be here after the program for any additional questions you might have. Our next program is Wednesday, May 14th, also at Lubber Run and on Zoom. The topic is still under discussion, but I think it's leaning more to how we're dealing as a community to the various economic bubbles that we're dealing with in the world. No, liquor and wine, that's a good suggestion. And don't forget to sign up for our second annual soiree on June 11th. Information has already been sent to you and it's available on our website. We are honored tonight to have a stellar lineup of speakers who work in the aging arenas, often causing our greatest angst. Aging in place versus moving to a retirement community, availability of care services, the financial commitment required to age gracefully. I am pleased to introduce tonight's moderator, Maimouna Ba, Arlington County's Division Director for Aging and Disability Services. Maimouna has served in various leadership positions within the county for the past 15 years, and she is best known for her advocacy in aging areas, monitoring and building coalitions to prove the outcome for optimal aging. Maimouna will provide an overview of what Arlington County is doing in the aging space, and she will then introduce the other speakers. We will have Q&A time throughout the program. We have already received some questions online, and for those of you in the room, we will allow you time to ask questions as well. Please keep your questions brief and in question format. I have a bell down here that I use if you're going into your extensive life story to ask your question. Thank you again to our, that's it. Now it's Maimouna. I'm stuck in the show. Now Maimouna.
Thank you, Jean. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with so many friends and colleagues, mentors, people that saw me grow up in aging. And so I come before you in Advance Arlington just to illuminate the issues that we are all faced with. If you're 43, if you're 63, 83, we all know that the issues confronted in our future do worry us. They do concern us. Today in the US, there are over 57 million people age 65 and older, representing 17.3% of the US. That's 1 in every 6 American, and it's growing. And what we know in AARP talks about that our 65 and over or 60 and over want to live life abundantly. You want to live knowing that you can access amenities and resources, dignity, independence, choice, and wellness. And so as you continue to age here in Arlington, what we do well is that thanks to our county government, our governing authority, our Commission on Aging members that are in the crowd, and former Commission on Aging members, as well as advocates, is we have a variety of services. We try to, in our Department of Human Services, center race. So race is a part of our evaluation, our policy, our practices, and we need to know who we're serving. And we also need to know who's missing. And so how we do that in Arlington is we try to get out in the communities, across marginalized communities, across our affordable care housing communities with the commission. We just recently had our community engagement forum at Macedonia Baptist Church, asking what matters most. And what we know that matters most is access to affordable housing, transportation, healthcare. These are all very vital and important. And if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one knows that in order to be able to live abundantly, you need to have the resources to be able to do that. And that's really something that is on the line, right? It's at risk. And so I do appreciate your advocacy around these issues. What we know in Arlington is that 67% of you are homeowners. But of the 67% of you, 25% of you are cost burdened. That means 30% of your income is going towards housing. We also know that 33% are renters, and they are also cost burdened. With the average apartment 1 bedroom of 2,400, that should not be a surprise. And sadly, the pandemic, we've seen a sharp increase in the number of older adults unhoused needing shelter. In fact, since 2021, 80% of our shelters referrals have increased, 80%. And that is staggering, right? So that's 1/3 of the population in Arlington. I don't know if you're aware of that homelessness among older adults is right here in Arlington with a large wealth demographic. We also know that there are pockets of poverty. Our Aging and Disability Resource Center, which is 703-228-1700, please remember that, is how you begin to access the wonderful array of services that we have. One of the services that I want to mention, just a couple before we go into our questions, but one of our newer services is for respite for caregivers. 2 years ago, we were given a grant over $1 million to start the dementia services outreach in individuals' homes, in residents' homes. So this grant allows us to mobilize to Arlingtonians who are caregivers of a loved one with dementia to provide an individualized plan to be able to help access the resources that the dementia practitioners are experts in. Not only is that in Arlington, that covers all of Northern Virginia. So the program is administered in Arlington, but we reach all of Northern Virginia residents. I don't know if you knew that. And if you didn't, now you know, and it is a free service, and it also comes with a free respite stay at our partner communities. We want to expand that because right now we just have 2 assisted living communities who have partnered to allow a free respite stay for a limited time for that caregiver, because we know that caregivers are stressed, they're burdened, and they do not have a chance to prioritize their own needs. So keep that in mind. That's right here in Arlington. We also are very proud of our nursing case management services through the net tax support dollars of our Arlington residents, such as yourself. We are one of the only nursing case management programs, not only in the state, but in the country. Can you imagine that? We have RNs that are available to mobilize in the community through working with the physicians, the primary care physicians of individuals to provide healthcare, preventative chronic disease care, and medication education and outreach. So nursing case management. We also have our illustrious Commission on Aging members. So on the table in the back, I did share the latest plan, age-friendly plan. So most of you all probably are aware that Arlington is an age-friendly community through AARP and the World Health Organization. And so there is an action plan 2023 to 2028 that really gives the guideposts and the blueprint for making Arlington a more age-friendly community. There are a variety of services that we have, but I know that you want to get started with the questions. So let me introduce the panel members. Thank you. And the brochures are in the back. All right, I would like to introduce first Christine Dolan. Christine is the founder and CEO of C. Dolan and Associates. She's a daily money manager with a passion for assisting clients who feel stressed and overwhelmed navigating their financial matters. Clients include seniors struggling to keep up with their financial paperwork, adult children of those seniors trying to help their parents cope while remaining independent. A third-generation Arlingtonian, she's a business operations professional with more than 20 years of experience in project management, contract management, bookkeeping, and office management. Mitch Opalski, and we know each other well. It's good to see Mitch. CPA certified dementia practitioner, CEO and owner of Synergy Home Care of Arlington. After many years in the world of financial auditing, Mitch joined the National Association of Home Care and Hospice on Capitol Hill. As COO of the National Association for Home Care and Hospice on Capitol Hill, he fell in love with the concept of taking care of people at home and eventually pivoted his healthcare career to open his own franchise agency, Synergy Home Care of Arlington. For the past 3 years, his agency has been named one of the top 100 in the nation based on high customer service ratings gathered by the industry watchdog Home Care Pulse. Wendy Zanker, we know each other well. Wendy is the executive director of Arlington Neighborhood Village since October 2017. I can't believe that. Prior to joining ANV, as it's affectionately known, Wendy was a senior vice president for the National Council on Aging, very close partners with our agency, where she directed the implementation of nationwide programs to improve the health and financial well-being of older adults, especially those with low incomes. Prior to that, her 30+ years concluded as COO for the Corporation for National Service, now AmeriCorps, which oversees AmeriCorps and Senior Corps programs, two of the biggest volunteer programs in the nation. And finally, Marta Wells. Marta Hill Gray is the president of Culpeper Garden Affordable Senior Housing in Arlington and is a tireless supporter of older adults and marginalized populations and their unique needs. She has 30 years of experience in media, marketing, sponsorship, and communications. Marta Hill Gray has worked with a range of businesses both in the US and internationally. Before going out on her own, she served as the head of sponsorship for Sesame Workshop, parent company of the beloved Sesame Street brand and television show, along with other notable children's programs. So if you would join me in giving a warm welcome to our expert. All right, so let's get started with the questions. First topic, and I can pass the mic if needed. What are some of the pros and cons of aging in your home versus moving to a senior facility? How do you start those conversations? And that will be the next question. So let me just, what are some of the pros and cons of aging in your home?
I'll take it first. Thanks, Maria. I'm gonna take it first because that's what we do. Arlington Neighborhood Village are 300 volunteers that are helping older adults stay in their homes. And we know, like you said, 90% of people want to stay in their homes. What's the advantage? You know it. You know your neighbors, you know your street, you know the stores that you want to shop, you know your garden. You have all your memories there. I've had talk with people who have just pointed to a wall of pictures and books and mementos, and this is their life. You know, why would they not want to stay there? And amongst friends, you know, the comment is they want to go out feet first. So that's the advantage of staying in your home. What's the disadvantage? What happens when you can't do that safely? What happens when you're not driving anymore in a community like ours? When you can't use public transportation, when you're in your home and the door's closed, your neighbors have moved on. You don't know the new couple that moved next door in the McMansion that went up. What do you get when you move to another residence? You get friends, you get people. You're not stuck in your apartment or your house with the door closed. You get social connections. You can go downstairs, you can talk to people, you can share a meal with somebody. There's a yin and yang to all of this. And we're talking right now about people who are relatively healthy. Think about a circumstance where you're not healthy and you have these challenges. So these are all the decisions we're going to have to make. And, you know, I wish I could say that all of us were going to age healthy, but we're not. And we're going to need help. And it's going to be a matter of how do we find that help and where's the best place to find that help.
What a nice segue. Thank you. Wendy, yes. So one of the pros of staying at home where you want to be is that you can bring help in. And that's what we do. It's our promise to keep you at home as long as you can, stay there safely. And it can be affordable until a certain point when you need a lot of care. Then you do your cost benefit analysis. But also the care is one-on-one. You have one caregiver that's at your disposal, so to speak, focused solely on you. When you go to a retirement community, it's shared care, really. You have a group of caregivers, home health aides that are taking care of a whole bunch of people living there. So you may not get what you need exactly when you need it, you know, so that's the trade-off. Sometimes you have to wait, but it could be more cost effective when you need a lot of care to move into a community that's right for you.
And I'll just add on to that, it definitely, my point of view with this is the cost analysis. And at what point for a particular individual or a couple, is it advantageous for you to move out into a community because it's costing you extra money and you need extra help on many levels at your house because it's not safe for you to be there alone anymore. So that's where I kind of come in and want people to look at from your analysis of when is it cost effective for me to move rather than staying home where I know everything when you need extra help there.
Next question. How do you start those conversations when an older adult needs more care, when they may become resistant to that because they do want to hold on to their independence? And when the family is also struggling and there may be some dynamics going on to prevent them to advance to maybe a safer location, place?
I'm going to jump back on where I was before, and that's when it comes to the cost. So when you see the cost going up continually and you continually need more help, you're starting to fall or things are starting to happen. It's not a safe option for you at home, but you really are seeing the cost when it's 24-hour care. And that's more usually generally when it's 3 nights a week plus, then you might want to start considering what your alternatives are from that perspective. So it really comes down to the money and a cost analysis within your family.
I'd also say you can't put it off.
If you wait too long, you're simply not gonna be in a position to be able to make those decisions. You're not gonna be able to cognitively decide what's a good deal, where do you wanna go? You're not gonna be able to execute on the plan, you're not gonna be able to sell your house, you're not gonna be able, right, so you're not gonna be able to pack your stuff up and go. So, my perspective is that you have to think about this before you need it. You have to research what's available. There are many options here in Arlington. You have to look at what your resources are to help you finance those choices. But when people come up with barriers, and I've talked about memories, my point of view is memories can be moved. I know that everyone sits there and says, this is, that's the wall, those are my son's trophies. I go, pack them up, put them in a box, that wall can look the same in another room where you're living. So from my perspective, don't put it off, explore what your options are, think about the choices you get to make, think about what family members you might call on, think about whether you're staying in this area or going somewhere else, but explore every option. Many of the facilities in our community have lunches, they invite you out. I know I get letters all the time. I could have so many free meals if I just decided to take advantage of them all. There are opportunities to tour places. It's very challenging to understand the price dynamics of all of these places. I mean, you almost have to be an accountant to figure it out. So you don't want to be rushed, and you want to understand what you're getting into, and if you're making a choice, what you're signing, and what the deal is and what you're going to be entitled to.
I also want to say, because we're in the affordable housing space, I think it's important for people to talk to their families about what they want. Because I can't tell you how many phone calls I've received where mom fell, she can't go home. And oh my gosh, we didn't realize she doesn't really have very much. And so how soon can we move in? And I say, well, we have a 2 to 3 year wait list. So these are the kinds of things I don't think people prepare for. People don't want to talk about it. It's complicated, but I think as we age, this is good for the kids who are involved, but also for folks to articulate, this is what I have, this is how I want it to go. We don't have to talk about it until the time comes, but at least where you are, what the rules are for me. And I think while you're still in command, so someone doesn't decide.
Thank you. And Marta, while you're speaking, we actually have a question from online. Marjorie Hobart and Linda Kelleher.
Here.
Familiar name. What is the composition of residents in Culpeper Gardens? And what we know is that affordable assisted living is limited, but we are very fortunate to have Culpeper Garden. Tell us about the composition, age, income, subsidies, waiting period, as you just mentioned. And that besides Culpeper Garden, where are some other affordable assisted livings? And I could probably speak to that.
And one of the things we spoke on the phone yesterday is, I think people don't know, there are planned communities that they call continuing care retirement communities, CCRCs, where for a price, and it's usually pretty hefty, you can transition from a cottage to an apartment, to assisted living, to a nursing home or memory care. And I just have to throw in memory care. There's no subsidy for that. There's no support. So that is really tricky. And it's complicated. It requires a lot of help. Okay, Culpeper Garden. We have 273 independent living units. We currently have 287 occupants. So some are double. We have some caregivers living with people. And then in assisted living, we have 73 units. And we currently have 67 residents there at this time. Age range in independent living is between 76 and 79. Average age in assisted living is 82. Our oldest resident is in independent living, 107. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, we're pretty and very independent, and don't fuss with them at all. One of the things that's interesting in our what we call CG1, the income limits are at 60% of average median income, and that's 68,000 annually. And then CG2 and CG3 are 50%, and that's about 57,000. Most of the residents in independent living have about $18,000 a year to live on. Many have less than that. So think about monthly, what that leaves them. It's not a lot. So how's that? Is that helpful? And then there are other communities. We do have assisted living. We are one of the few. The county is extremely generous in helping us subsidize the care for residents who don't have the resources to pay for their care. So they qualify for the rental, but the care is beyond their means. So it's pretty miraculous, and the county's been incredibly generous and supportive of that. The trick is to find the private pay people who qualify low income for the rental, but have the assets to pay for their care. So if Nana sells her house in Arlington, she probably has the money to pay for her care, but she may only have $2,000 a month in income. So she would be my dream date. So it's tricky, and it's not, everything requires planning. That would be my closing statement, is you've got to think about this and you've got to plan for it. And I know people don't want to talk about it, but when you don't want to get there and not have a plan.
Thank you, Marta. And there's a question, and I can actually just mention around affordability, as some of you might have already experienced. Assisted living is not affordable. The average monthly cost of an assisted living is around $7,000. That's on the lower end. And we know that if you need any additional care or supports, memory care, it's an a la carte service. So the cost continues to climb. And where there's a need for more advocacy, which I thank INVAN, I thank Commission on Aging for continuing to advocate, is around affordable assisted livings. We do have Mary Marshall, which we're very grateful for Mary Marshall, 15+ years strong, but that's for a niche of a population. And that is 52 units. And that is for older adults who are 55+, but they do have to have a severe mental illness or a developmental disability. Other than that, we don't have. And if we do, it's through an auxiliary grant, which many of you know. Auxiliary grant is dependent upon that community really opening up their auxiliary grant bed to an external population. Usually if they do have an affordable unit here or there, it's going to be saved for those residents who are in need that are already residents. So assisted living is not affordable. It's not covered by Medicare. And if it is covered by a subsidy, it's called auxiliary grant, which the rate is, help me out, Claire, it's 2,000, 23 plus a year. So I just mentioned, thank you, Terry, just mentioned that the average cost for assisted living is 7,000. Do you think most of our assisted living communities say yes to that subsidy? No. They do not. So there's more work to be done. And whether you are on fixed income, you have resources. A lot of people end up depleting the resources that you do have when you go into assisted living. So that's an advocacy point. I want to take your question, please.
Just kind of related to that, I'm starting to do planning for my own parents who are not online, it's fine. But I wanted to confirm, my mother-in-law went to Culpeper, which is us. Then went to Manor, which is worth it. So worst, I know the worst of it is, I know, when she died, we had to wait an hour and a half in the morning to get it because it wasn't enough staff.
Could you give her the microphone?
Yes.
Sure. Repeat the question, please.
Yeah.
So my question is I think it's kind of confirming. I started to look at it and I think there is this gap for if you are someone who can qualify for affordable, there are a couple of options and I'm asking this. So that's Culpeper, if you get on the wait list, and there's the Carlin The Carlin is just up the street, is that right? So near Ballston, two people can't make more than $60,480 to qualify for those apartments. But I think, are those the only apartments? And other than that, like I was looking at the Falcon and stuff that they used to have for military and stuff like that. There is no set aside for military anymore. It was, you know, like the Goodwin House, I think they wanted, no, it wasn't Goodwin, it was someplace in Fairfax, but you know, you had to do a 90% refundable entrance deposit of 500,000 to 600,000. And then it was 3,700 to 7,000, so crap. Well, you had to have the money to put down before then you had the right and the privilege to spend a crap load of money monthly. But am I right or wrong? That we are sort of stuck if you are government, military, middle class, staying in your house is really the best choice so far, I'm finding. So then the question is, do you retrofit your house and, you know, hope that your daughter and son will come home and help you?
Thank you, and I'll just say and hand it over to the panelists. So we have in the county units that they set aside, committed affordable units, and they're a little over 11,000 committed affordable units. However, we need more because our population of older adults is 38,000. And then when you think about the individuals that are on fixed income, that's a third. And so our committed affordable units are scattered, and the Carlin, for example, is independent living. But though it comes with the resident services coordinator, it's not what an assisted living, it's not the medical model, right? So it takes our agency to wrap around services for the individual that may be actually at an assisted living level of care to live there independently and stay. So it's an apartment, but the good news is that it does have a resident service coordinator who links back to county services, but it's an independent living. Okay, and then we do have others under True Housing Ground, and they used to be called APA. You might be familiar, probably. And then AHC communities are considered affordable units. And then we do have the housing grant subsidy in Arlington County, which is locally funded, and we do appreciate that, but it is still limited. Okay, I'm gonna pass it over to anybody that wants to.
Well, and you made the point of staying in your home. Maybe, and I'm not gonna use the word best, only, good, but staying in your home is certainly an option that we all have, and that's what Arlington Neighborhood Village is really targeted to. Folks who need a little bit extra help to be able to stay in their home. So you can imagine a circumstance where you can't drive anymore and you're a half a mile from a bus stop or, you know, getting on the metro, so you need that extra help. We have volunteers that can drive you to a medical appointment, take you grocery shopping, pick up a prescription, help you with your technology, help you with your chores. So we're a nonprofit, community-based organization with 300 volunteers that are offering those services to help someone stay in their home. And that's great. I guess I'm only noting that as life goes on, that might not continue to work for people who may continue to become more frail and get to the point where volunteer assistance may not be enough to stay in that.
Thanks. I'm aware, friends of mine in the Intermountain West have helped their parents by having them in family homes which specialize in caring for more and more frail adults. I haven't heard about that model existing here at all. Does it? And if so, how does it work?
Thank you. Did you want to? So they're few and far in between, but the small cottage home-like environment is definitely more ideal. And we do have Avalon homes. Of course, our Commission on Aging, Long-Term Care Subcommittee is looking at the greenhouse project, that model, which does build into small cottage homes. But we are limited in the number of small house homes here in Arlington. What we do is we look across Northern Virginia. Loudoun County, Prince William County do have more small homes that are cottages, and we have partnered with them in terms of our dementia program that I spoke of, where I mentioned we do have a few respite beds. One of the Avalon Homes is our respite provider for individuals who do have a diagnosis of dementia and they have a caregiver that's caring for them and they need respite. I also do want to mention Adult Day. So Adult Day is the answer to respite care services that is a wonderful medical and social model. And it responds to the needs of individuals who may have early stages of a dementia diagnosis. They need day programming and supervision, and it allows the caregiver to have respite Monday through Friday. We're fortunate to have a wonderful adult day program at Walter Reed. And that is a program that provides memory cafes, they provide yoga, they provide nutrition. They even have a nurse that provides medication management. So Monday through Friday during the day, if a caregiver, and a lot of our caregivers are sandwich generation, so they're caring for a small, under the age of 18 children. And then they're also working full time and they're caring for mom or dad. So this is a great answer to, more affordable, and it's a respite model, medical and social, because we do have a social worker also that works with the caregivers. And that's all across the country. Now that's an advocacy piece too, is adult day programs. We want to see them stay, we need them. And so that's another response.
Not a question.
Okay.
I work nationally with families and I have a lot of 3, 4, and 5 generation families. Housing has gone up a lot. The country is on average 30% underhoused. Probably if we lived in rural North Dakota, it's not too bad, but around here, you probably are pretty aware of how underhoused we are. And if you own a small Rambler or Sears construction house, you can sell it for $1.6 million. They're gonna bulldoze it and they're gonna put up a very large home. The reason I bring that up is that that person who does not have long-term care, sufficient income, or too much to go to someplace like Culpeper Garden can take the proceeds and put it into what's called a legacy income trust. If you are 80 years old, you will get $8,000 approximately a month. So if you're getting a small amount of Social Security, and that $8,000 can make a big difference in what kind of care and space that they can, be accommodated in. And it lasts their lifetime. Doesn't matter if they live from, who was it, 106? Yeah, 106. We just did an estate for a woman who lived to 106. But my point is that it's one of many solutions that can be looked at for somebody that's going to sell their home and does not have other sufficient incomes, the way they get income to their life. There's one hitch. The asset that remains at the end cannot go to a family member or person. It must go to a 501c3. So, if they feel bad about the homeless puppies or, cancer research, the hospital, whatever, they name a 501c3, but that money will last their lifetime regardless of aging. So I think that's something that can help, especially around here, the house, even the little bitties go for a lot of money. But I just wanted you to be aware. Sorry. Legacy income trust. You can call me and I'll get you, give me your email. I'll send you the data.
Legacy Income Trust. Thank you for that resource.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It helped a lot of them.
We have another question?
As a volunteer driver and former director of Arlington Neighborhood Village, which I'm a huge fan of, I'm curious about the ANV model, because as I've seen over the years of volunteer driving for taking old ladies to doctor's appointments. That's the main thing I do. And people get more and more frail and several probably I'm not aware of that they've either passed on or moved to another stage of life. But I'm curious, what is the process within ANV of how ANV decides when one of its members, and I should say that ANV, I think it's the best possible solution where it applies, but who decides and what happens to the people for whom the volunteer assistance that ANV provides is no longer enough?
John, by accident, used the words that we presented to our board before he was there, when A and B is not enough. And I've experienced those circumstances where someone indeed is healthy and well, and then perhaps takes a fall. And maybe one fall they recover from, but then there's a second fall. And then you realize the person's falling because of other issues, and they're not just tripping, and some kind of cognitive decline or medication management. What we do in those circumstances is look for family members. So someone who is living independently and running their own life and doesn't want to hear about anybody else. When we start to see that kind of decline, we do have emergency contacts for our members, and we reach out, and that emergency contact may be local. It may be a family member that's here, or it could be a family member in another city. But we start to talk to that family member and tell them the kinds of circumstances that we're observing and our volunteers are observing, so that this decline doesn't happen behind closed doors with nobody being aware of it. But we try to engage other people in the care of this person. And in the worst of all circumstances, if there isn't family to call on, and there are at times that there isn't family, then we're turning to Arlington County, and we're perhaps calling Adult Protective Services to step in when we feel that someone cannot safely remain in their homes. And sadly, there have been a few instances of that. Happily, it's been a few, not many, but we've experienced it. And it's a challenge, and with our membership growing and aging, we know it's only going to become more significant and severe as time goes on.
Do we have another question?
Hi there. I'm interested in a cohort of people who leave their home, but they go to a condo or they go to an apartment and they form organic communities that support each other. There's a number of condominium buildings that have dozens of people who are over 60 and they become friends. But I think that there can be more structure around this and more promotion of it so that people can find each other in these communities. And sort of the organic community of mutual support and sharing resources, watching out for each other. But I think it's a little bit of a campaign the county could take on to like encourage people to look at how your community around you and help people find each other. They might not know that there's somebody in their building that they could be look out for each other. That's nice.
I am so glad you asked this question because it's a nice plug for the ambassador program model, Wendy.
So there are a couple of things that I would talk about. And the problem with me is I'm now 72 and I'm going to forget the things that I want to talk about. So you're going to have to apologizing in advance. One is the ambassador program. We now have a community ambassador program where we are looking to have people in communities, in buildings, in faith institutions, in civic associations, where we can have a key person who has a sense of what the resources are that exist in the county. They're not experts. They're not going to drill down on any one subject, but they're going to be an inch deep in a lot of things. And that person, that expert, that trusted person living in the building can start to share information with others that are willing to come to that person and say, don't understand, what are my transportation options? What are my housing options? What are my food options? So the community ambassador program is one opportunity. The other two that I raise are volunteer. If you're still active, do not just be in your building wondering where is everybody else. There are so many nonprofit organizations and county offices that are looking for volunteer help. Just get out there and do something. John is a volunteer driver. I can point to other people in this room that I know volunteer. AFAC has thousands of volunteers that are helping. We can, if you're able, and I think everybody in this room is able, you should be volunteering somewhere, making connections and making new friends. It's the best and easiest thing that you can do. Third thing I'm gonna say, right here, Department of Parks and Rec, we have a phenomenal 55+ program that has a catalog of 40 some odd pages, 2 columns long. It's like you're still in college. That comes out every quarter of mental health, exercise, crafting, intellectual stimulation. We have Encore that's offering programs so there are all sorts of ways to keep your mind active and your finger. You got someone knitting over there, keep your mind and your fingers active doing things. But that's an opportunity to make friends. And I think that's a challenge. I mean, we all sat there and made friends in school and in college, and then you have your work friends. And all of a sudden you're not working anymore, you're not in school anymore, and you're an older person. And you're losing your other friends, they're moving away. How do you make friends? And there are opportunities to do that with volunteering, with the 55+ program, and with the ambassador program.
And I just want to say too, real quickly with that is, don't be afraid to be an ambassador on your own. It doesn't have to be anything formal, through volunteering. Be a volunteer. You see somebody in the neighborhood, at the grocery, anywhere that looks like they're in distress or needs help, help them. Reach out to them. It's hard sometimes. I know people are afraid to, and come up with your own things. I know when I moved in my neighborhood, there was an elderly person down the street, and I went to pick up the newspaper, and another neighbor across the street who's much older than I am said, "Don't do that, Christine." I said, "Why not?" He says, "We never pick up her newspaper. That's how we know she's okay. She comes up." I said, "Got it. I won't pick up her newspaper." So little things like that that you can do on your own.
I also want to mention intergenerational programming. So the idea of even your high schools, your middle schools, these next generation of folks that we're going to rely upon to take the charge and champion the issues that matter most for older adults, they are eager to get involved. I got a call from Yorktown and Wakefield and high school students needing to complete their hours in order to graduate. They want to be a part of something greater than outside of their cohort. And aging, we can make it as sexy as they need it or not sexy, but they want to be involved. And so I found that this is a generation that we can expose, and they love a good cause. So they could get out here in the communities, identify who are the natural occurring leaders, the natural occurring communities that can help neighbor to neighbor. The Arlington Neighborhood Village, of course, is the model, but informally, as we mentioned. The other thing is liaising. So I'm very proud to share that in Arlington, along with commissioners, we've been able to develop a liaison model for our assisted living and nursing home communities. This is outside of the long-term care ombudsman program that has a mandate to investigate residents' rights and complaints and that sort of thing. This is ideal. And what it does is it assigns a volunteer such as yourself that is interested in giving back to older adults in your community and improving quality of life and care, and assigns you to that respective community. And then you become a liaison with that executive director and the team to find out about staffing, programming, challenges, strengths, and also resources. So some of these communities don't even know that next door to them is, a nonprofit that's willing to partner and help and bring resources in or volunteer. So liaison is a model. And then the community advisory boards in your independent living communities and bringing the residents together and the community to provide and promote quality of life. So there are many opportunities. We just need your ideas, bring them to me, 1700-228-1700, or my extension is 228-1709. I'm happy to hear about it.
I just wanted to mention also in the last 10 years, home share programs have popped up. I don't hear people talking about them a lot. They're online platforms, and if you insist on staying in your 3-4 bedroom home and getting a little lonely and can use some extra income, pay those real estate taxes, you can take on a roommate. And so these home share programs, their job is to match you with a compatible person. They vet them, background checks and all that, so for safety. So that's another option to help you stay in your home to combat social isolation and financing issues.
Sure.
Regarding the home share program, how, there are requirements from the county that the houses has to follow to allow that? They have to be like separate kitchen, or is the same kitchen shared? Bathroom?
Is anybody more expert about home share than I am?
It's like you move it. Yeah. There are many different styles.
I don't think we regulated.
It's not regulated. Yes.
That was.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go to Claire. She's been holding on tight.
Back to home sharing, I really want to talk about something else, but you brought up ADUs, accessory dwelling units. I don't know how many there are in Arlington, but that is also an option, and I am not an expert on ADUs, but it's something also that is a possibility. But what I wanted to talk about was, it's similar to what you said, is the reverse mortgage option or whatever. Quite a number of years back, Wendy and I had the opportunity to help. She started being an A&V member, and then her health, she had a lot of health issues, and she took advantage of a reverse mortgage, and Wendy and I helped her for many years as first as I'm not involved with the A&V, but for Wendy's case as an A&V officer, and became her friend, and but that is also an option. I think I don't know that much about it. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a business person, but that.
We have Joe, you're on. Joe Petro, who not only famous, but head of the national.
Yeah, actually, that was my question. I work for the House Banking Committee. We authorized the FHA HECM program, and that was somewhat safe, but there's other private sector ones that aren't safe. And my question actually to the panel was, and to you, is what is the experience with home equity conversion mortgages? And basically what it is, that you give the bank your house and they give you an annuity to live there. So if you're well elderly or whatever, it's a good option. But over the years, there's been some issues with them. So unless the instrument is protected, and the best one would probably be the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, home equity conversion mortgage, that would be the best. But if you went to a private lender or something like that, it's a little risky.
I have found that in some cases, it's also can help with paying with staying home, obviously, but being able to contract with a home health aid organization, agency like Mitch's, or there are several around, and that also, in the case of our mutual Wendy, our mutual friend, enabled her to stay in her home. Sadly, she was quite ill, and she
passed away with my son, but at least the reverse mortgage, whether it was really the. You know, a good tool or not, in her case, it worked out, no. I'm not advocating that, I'm just saying it can be a source of income.
Does anyone want to take the reverse?
No, way to go.
The only thing I'd say with reverse mortgages is, the other incredible thing that happens in our lifetime now is the internet. So I was trying to remember, this morning, what I knew about reverse mortgages in preparation for tonight, and I Googled reverse mortgages, and I now feel that I know just enough. So yes, they exist. Most importantly, there's a requirement for independent counseling before anyone takes a reverse mortgage. You can go to a mortgage lender and they can sell you the moon, and it sounds great. And before you sign on the dotted line, there is a legal requirement that you have to go to independent counseling to make sure that you fully understand the parameters of a reverse mortgage, what's the best solution for you, are there other options? And once you go through that counseling and you're certified that you got through that counseling, then you can pursue the idea of a reverse mortgage. So it's what I'm gonna circle back to is what I said in the beginning. These are very complicated decisions that an older adult has to make. And if you put off learning about this decision too long, you're not gonna have the mental facilities and capabilities, capacity, thank you. See, I already don't have the words. To figure this out on your own. So explore all of these options while you're still in a position to really get the facts and understand and talk with your family if you have about what the future looks like.
And one other option with that too, you can also do a HELOC and a home equity line of credit, which doesn't have all of the requirements that go along with that. So just another option depending on your situation, but it's also personalized, depends on the situation.
It's after 8, but we can go on for a little bit longer if people are interested in asking some more questions.
Earlier mention was made of the ambassador program. What is it?
So. And I'm very happy to talk about it. We talked to you about it after our meeting. It's simply another set of volunteers that we're training to be much more local in our community, to have a sense of all of the materials you saw on the back table and hearing us here today talk about the things we know. The idea is to have ambassadors in all of our communities that have the same 1-inch deep knowledge, that it's really, an ambassador is going to be a telephone directory. If you come to them and say, I need information about how I can have food, they're going to sit there and say, here are some options in Arlington that you should explore. And they're going to know what to direct you to, like a telephone director. They're not going to be the experts, but they're going to help you understand options for healthcare, for food, for transportation, etc. We're looking for volunteers who want to be ambassadors. We have 17 now. We need like 100.
I think, and then we'll go back to the back. And then I'll go to this one.
I wanted to continue with what
Can't hear you.
I wanted to continue with what you mentioned about accessory weddings.
Talking to the mic.
You can speak up. Okay. I just wanted to continue with what you mentioned about accessory dwellings in Arlington. If we live in a home and the lot size allowed an accessory dwelling, and we had the resources to build one, it's about 750 max square feet. It's like 1 bedroom plus then apartment, and it can be usually 2 stories, 1.5 they call it. So the flexibility that you can rent either one, so you can live in the home and rent the AD, or you can live on the AD and rent the home. You can rent your home for about 5,000, let's say. So then you can pay, if you need to go to one of the assisted living, you can pay with the rent of the home to go to the assisted living. And you still have the AD. The only restriction is that you cannot rent both, because that will be the ideal. So if you rent both, you can have, let's say, 5 + 3, 8, with 8, you can go comfortable to one of these assisted living. That will be maybe one exception that we can ask the county for retirement people that need to go to these facilities to allow that flexibility to rent both. So we can ask the county board on those situations, I don't know the amount of that. And probably there are going to be requirements about design, so they are independent, et cetera, they could go. But I see that as the most attractive solution. So you can live independently until you can, what you mentioned, and then when you cannot, you rent and you have the money to go, and then you can leave the property to your children, because that's the other aspect, instead of giving up.
That sounds like we might want to recruit you for a subcommittee with the Commission on Aging that focuses on housing, supportive housing, affordable housing.
Is there anything that the county government is not doing now that would be able to help seniors? Do you have any ideas for legislation that might help seniors in Arlington?
Thank you. Well, I'll let you in.
Well, it's not legislation per se to help seniors in Arlington. We, Arlington Neighborhood Village and other villages in Virginia, went to our legislature and asked for a small sum of money, $400,000, so that we could grow the village movement in the state. Right now, there are 16 villages in the state. There could be 116 because they're really community focused. But we were looking for some extra support to build that infrastructure. That's not answering the question you raised, but we have, for example, gone to the legislature looking for some financial support to grow villages so we can have more nonprofits that are helping people stay in their homes using volunteer power versus having to pay for services. So one thing. It was in the budget, the governor vetoed it, but then the legislature overrode the veto, so it's back on the governor's desk. What can I say? The process goes on.
I think also, care for seniors, cognitive care, so those dealing with dementia issues, if there was additional support, whether it's in-home or on-site, but that's one area that's really lacking, and there's no infrastructure that I'm aware of that's really robust in terms of identifying it, because they can tell you have cancer or diabetes or whatever, but the stages of dementia and the types of dementia, it's pervasive, it's tricky, and people get injured and hurt and die because they're not diagnosed, and there are no programs really structured to identify that. So that's just something that needs to be looked at for all income levels, but especially my group. We deal with it it's very pervasive.
And while it's not legislation per se, it always comes down to the same thing, which is money. Anybody's money, I'm sure there are songs that have that too, that, go for it. But you're hearing right now, all of us talk about programs that we have here in the county that can help us grow old, in a healthy, connected way. All of them are at risk. Every single one of the programs we're talking about today are at risk. They're at risk because there may be program cuts. I'm sorry. They're at risk because there may be program cuts to the funds for older adults. And even if there weren't going to be program cuts, the numbers go up. Maimuna said that we've got 57 million older adults. When I started in this field, it was 43. I remember the number well. So we have in 15 years gone from 43 to 57 million adults. And that's because of the baby boomer tsunami. We knew it was coming, but there need to be more resources for us to be able to do the things that all of us are doing. And it's not a legislative solution in terms of a policy and an advocacy, and there's certainly lots of those out there. And we have people who are working on that, whether it's NVA, there are people in this audience that could give you that answer. But I'm also going to say the bottom line answer is it turns into money, and just having the resources, not taking them away, but growing them.
So maybe a line item in the county budget on supporting the.
I mean, personally, I think the county has to do more in aging. I think that I'm sorry, this is the advocacy role that I get to take. I mean, we rely heavily on federal money that goes to the state comes to the AAA. Those are great dollars when they flow, but that tap potentially is turned off. The county's gonna have to make difficult decisions. And very difficult decisions for not just older adults in the county, but for all of us who rely on resources from our county.
I just want to say affordable assisted living, that auxiliary grant is one that we talked about earlier. Also looking at home and community-based services. So this is how people remain in their home and they can access home care, personal care. That is something that we need to advocate for, hold on to. There's also food insecurity. We have relied 100% on the federal dollars for our home delivered meal program. We just had our county budget passed, and so we do have more, we do have a small stipend of local net support for the home delivered meals, but we need more. There's so much advocacy, I think, speaking with Erica and Terry and Claire, getting a part of Northern Virginia Aging Network. There are really a lot of issues: housing, transportation, healthcare, you name it, so.
Going back to my witness advocacy concerning the dementia program, which is sponsored by the state. I heard a briefing on this today, in fact, this morning in another room in this building. And yes, the dementia program for caregivers and the patients is free. There's a respite program, which Maimuna alluded to. It's limited. We need more. There's also a one-time stipend, and Maimuna, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a one-time stipend of $595.
For respite.
To help out the caregivers and the patient, either trying to obtain respite care, which, $595 in a private pay respite care mode. Probably it's not gonna last more than a day and a half or whatever, so if I was talking about advocacy, this is another area where we would need advocacy, is for that stipend to be increased. Because yes, it's great to get $595, but it goes very quickly. It's just one day of respite.
We have time for
One more question.
one more question. Okay, I think you've been holding your hand up.
This is sort of a two-parter, but I know that, I forgot your first name, Mr. Opalski. Yeah, so, one of the things, AARP had a magazine article a couple of weeks ago, maybe months ago, I'm losing track of time after January. About the shortage of medical care providers in the United States, and there's a lot of issues there. One of the things that I found interesting, my mother-in-law aged, and then I had a cousin who was 55 who died of cancer and had to have, hospice, was access to nursing and skilled care staff. That concerns me a lot for this area, and with the immigration changes that are coming. I just briefly looked online and it looks like you've got a really high rating, so I'm really hoping that you have seen that you can retain your staff. But that might be an interesting thing in, rural Colorado, rural, whatever. I have friends who got their medical degree and then went and served. We actually are pretty underserved here. I can't get a general practitioner since 2020 when mine retired, and I don't know where the heck she is. So I don't know if you can comment on that, but I think access to similar people to come to a house is very important as you age, and then having access to, doctors that are still taking aging patients, because, sometimes we cost them more. But can you comment about it?
It's a great question to end on.
Yeah, I don't live in a skilled world, but I know that it boils down to there were reimbursement rates from the government programs like Medicare, or even what the Blue Cross Blue Shield pays. And so Congress is always looking at those programs and trying to cut. All they really need to do is get rid of the fraud. And then it would be affordable, and I don't know why they're not going after that, it's flagrant. But a lot of physicians have been leaving geriatric care and leaving Medicare because the reimbursement rates aren't keeping up. And that this leads to the 15-minute visits where, they can't get any depth into your healthcare and your situation. So that part, I'm very aware of it. I think it's getting worse. So when you filter down to home care for things short-term like physical therapy or nursing care when you come home from the hospital to get you back to your baseline, those services are adequate, I think, in the community. Physical therapists sometimes are in short supply, or speech therapists, but then the shortage, when it becomes people become aware of it, then somehow the gaps get filled. So but the government in Congress also looks at the home care program and tries to cut money from there to save the budget deficit. So it's a constant battle, and that's why you have trade associations that go on the Hill and fight and advocate for all of these costs.
So I'm gonna put one last ad. I know Jean's, I'm sorry, you're at the mic. One of the programs Maimuna didn't mention is benefits checkup. And this is something that I worked on when I was at NCOA, the National Council on Aging. So for all of you in the room, there is a website, benefitscheckup.org. You can go in, fill out a questionnaire, and as a result of that, you'll find programs, federal, state, and local, that you may be eligible for. And if you're eligible for it, the website also has the applications that you can fill out. Maimuna and the county have gotten a grant to help people, in person, do a benefits checkup review and to fill out applications. And they're doing activities all throughout the county to help people who need that extra help. But any of us can go online, look at benefitscheckup.org, do a screening. You can do it here, you can do it anywhere across the country, you can do it for family and friends around the world. Just recommend it to everybody. That's the National Council on Aging does it, but it's called benefitscheckup.org.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I like doing it for places I used to work.
Thank you all so much, and thank you, Wendy, thank you, Mitch, thank you, Christine, and thank you, Marta. Just want to say on May 6th at our 2100 Washington Boulevard, we're going to have a benefits checkup outreach senior fair. May 6th at our 2100 Washington Boulevard location, and that is from 12 to 4. So we do have information about it that we're going to push out, and I can give that to Jean, and then she can share with all of you. But that's one of our benefit outreach that we're going to do for Older Americans Month. Happy Older Americans Month in the making in May. Thank you.
And thank you, Maimuna, you did an excellent job, and thank you guys for living with just one mic tonight. And I gave you all a big extension because you have so much information sharing in this room, and it was a great addition to this panel. So thank you all again, and thanks to our generous sponsors, and most importantly to our program sponsor tonight, Cheryl Beversdorf and her radio program, and we look forward to seeing you next month on May 14th. Nice evening.